Okay, now we're going to start chapter 2. Chapter 2 is the overview of data mining process, and I have a PowerPoint file. I'm not going to be using the PowerPoint file in class. You can take a look at it, but I cover all of the topics that's in the PowerPoint file using the RMD file. Okay, so here is the completed lesson in PDF. So here is the shell file, and here is the class file that I will be working on. Then I have three figures that I'm going to be using in the Markdown file. Okay, that's from the textbook. When we are talking about the topics, I need to be able to explain some things with the figures. So go ahead and download the zip file and unzip it and have it in your folder, so you won't get an error when we use the shell file. Okay, and then once you have done that, then open the shell file, RMD file, chapter 1, 2. Okay, so you have access to this PDF file as well. So if you like, you can download that and keep it in a screen so you can follow along. Okay. First, in chapter 2, before we get into the material in the text, okay, so we will go over that in a little bit. But first, I want to get started with some basic concepts in R, which we will be using repeatedly. Okay. So there are two things that we need to understand very clearly. What are the different types of data that can be stored and analyzed in R? So that's one. Number two is what kind of data structure that we can create and use in the analysis. So what are the data types, and how are those data, what are the different ways in which we can organize the data? So that's data structure. So basic data types, so here they are, and we won't be using complex. The other four we will be using. Okay, and let me give an example of these. Okay, so I'm going to start a code chunk, Control Alt I. All right, so I'm not going to change any of the options for this chunk. All right, suppose if I say A1, it's just a name, is 3. Okay, and then say A1. So the first line is going to put the number 3 into the variable A1. The second line is going to print the value A1. Now I can go and click this button. It will run, so it tells you that is 3, and again that variable is included in the environment. So there is A1, that is 3. So that's an integer value. Okay. That one. Okay. Now if I say A1, I'm going to create another one. A2 is 4 point. Okay, and then print A2. Okay, so now type of is a way of finding what it is, okay, what type of data it is. And again, another thing is if you go into console, you can try things out. You don't have to put it in a, if you want to test something out, you don't want to put it in a code chunk, then you can come to the console and type it out. Okay, so here you see A1 is double and A2 is double as well. So if you put a number into a variable, R is going to automatically assume that it's a floating point number. It's not an integer, it is a floating point number. So if you want it to be an integer, then you have to put an L. Okay. So now if I come and do type of A1, now I can use the up arrow key to bring back the previously executed commands. Up arrow will bring back in the console. Okay, not up there. In the console, if you do up arrow, so now you see that it is integer. Okay. So you can have numeric, integer, okay, complex. We're not going to worry about complex. Okay. And say character. So let's say A3 is a string I'm just, so here I want to illustrate the use of, okay, the single quotation mark and the double quotation mark. Okay. Okay. So the double quotation mark inside the single quotation mark, okay, is okay, because it's retaining its value, so that the backslash that you see is the escape character. So escape character means what comes next has a meaning in other context, which is like a double quote, which is like a start of a string, but no, don't use it in that fashion. It is part of this. Just use it as a value, like any other value within the single quotation mark. That's what the backslash means. Okay, whenever there is a special character that has a special meaning, but you don't want that special meaning to apply, but to be used as is, then you do backslash. Okay. Now, what happens here is that if I can't use a single quotation mark inside a single quotation mark. Okay, so it's going to, it's already telling me that there is an error here. Okay, if I want that part to be within quotation marks, then I have to use a different quotation mark. So if I want to use single quotation mark for that word called, then I should set up that with double quotation mark. Then the error will go away. Okay. So that's your string. And logical. Logical has two values, right? A4 and true and false are to be typed uppercase. Okay, so A4, so it gets true. Now if I do, okay. So you see what happened here? True translates into a numeric value 1, false translates into numeric value 0. Okay. But a logical data type has only 2 values, okay, binary. 0 means false, 1 means true. True means 1, and false translates into 0. So these are the 4 types of data that we will be using: numeric, integer, character, and logical. We're not going to use complex.